Hi, welcome to Hare in the Hawthorn. I'm your host, Kate Bray, and this is another book review. I'm super excited about doing this one. I've been holding on to this book for so long. Haven't even flicked through the pages. It must have been months and months when it came through. I've admitted before, I'm a bit of a bibliophile, so I gather books up, have books on my shelves. If they're super beautiful books, I'm really nervous about flicking through them and finding out their true essence, if you like. I saw this book, I think it was probably on Instagram, probably this time last year, maybe a little bit earlier. And the front cover alone did me. Now, I've got a big thing about hardback books, and especially ones that are slightly on the sparklier side, embellished with beautiful writing and beautiful pictures. And this one, on the looks of it, definitely hits the buttons. So we're going to have a flick through it together and see what we think of it. I just want to talk you a little bit through the front of the book and the thing that sold it for me. So the book that we're going to be looking at is the Faerie Handbook, which is an enchanting compendium of literature, law, art, recipes and projects, and it's from the editors of the Faerie magazine. So on the back it said, an alluring almanac of literature, law, art, recipes and projects to enchant the modern day lover. This is an exquisite anthology, welcomes those into the enchanted realm, rich with myth, mystery, romance, astounding natural beauty. So if I just introduce you to this book, and it's a beauty. Can we see this here? So what we have is, it's quite a thick book. It's quite a heavy book. It feels really beautifully made, and it's this lovely sort of lavender purple, and then we've got embossed silver columns that's very reminiscent of the sort of Victorian era, and this photograph piece of artwork on the front of a fairy. And then on the back we have some of the blurb, and I'm going to take you through page by page, and this is seriously the first time that I have myself been through this book. Ooh, I'm intrigued already. So I don't know how well you can pick that up. Absolutely beautiful, the inner pages, before we get to, I'm assuming it's going to be the content page. Oh, and I just want to show you down the outside as well. All this is beautifully silver edged, giving it a really good quality look. So in the pages of it we have first sort of lot of illustrations, and we have a quote and the content page, all very flowing at the minute. So in the contents we have an introduction. Part 1 is flora and fauna. Part 2 is fashion and beauty. Part 3 is arts and culture. Part 4 is home, food and entertaining. Then we have acknowledgements, resources, and then a bibliography and photography and illustration credits at the back. So on the introduction, we just have, oh, the pages are lovely and thick. We have just a very short one-page introduction to the book with a nice Victorian illustration. So flora and fauna. So this starts off with where fairies live. So the best places to find fairies. It talks about enchanted forests. It talks about looking in between clusters of coloured lichens smouldred upon a swarthy tree trunk. So it sounds beautifully written. Very short, only a couple of pages for each at the minute. Then a select list of fairy world inhabitants. So we're going through the fairies, which is very much the thing with most of the fairy books. They'll go through the inhabitants of the different realms. So we have brownies and boggarts, we have dwarfs and elves, we have fauns, gnomes, goblins, leprechauns, pixies, trolls. And then we go into then explanation about the Seelie and the Unseelie court. So those fae of the enchanted positive realms and those that aren't so. And then we have photography. Oh, you know, this was images that I came across a couple of years ago. There was a real big thing about enchanted photography, and I think, if I remember rightly, it was Russia. Yes, it is. It's Katrina Plotnitskavos. Yeah, my Russian interpretation of anything is not great, even having dyslexia, so I do apologise for that. But if you look up Russian wood enchanted or enchanting photography, you will find that, and there is loads that are absolutely stunning, and I think there's a few more photographers out there who do something very similar. We have a section on fairy architecture, again only a couple of pages with illustration. What else have we got in here? Contemporary fairy house architecture, so again fairy house interiors. So if you're into that, if you're into building fairy houses and wanting to build fairy houses for the bottom of the garden or for in your house, there's some beautiful ideas for maybe projects that you can do. Crafting your own fairy furniture is the next page, which is great. It gives you step-by-step guide to how to make a little chair and a little table. That's super cute, and then some more ideas on that. I'm not going to give it all away because I think if people are into the crafting and they like the fairies, they're going to want to buy this book. Then we talk about fairy herbs and the flower almanac. So it goes through the flowers and their association with the fae, which is lovely. And then it gives you a pressed flower idea under the crafting and poison gardens. Ooh, that's nice. So it talks about obviously the fly agaric, which are associated with the fairies, the foxgloves, which are associated with the fairies. It's got a nice photograph of the Anic poison gardens, which I so must get to. I spent a lot of my childhood summers up that way, and haven't been up for a long time, but really want to get to the Anic poison gardens. It's being into my herbs, it's definitely well up my street. Then we have a section on fairy trees and what they mean. So for instance, ash, second to the rowan in strength, the ash is the second best when it came to protecting humans from the fairies. That's something I didn't know. I'm learning all the time, which is great. So there's a few pages on that, and terrariums, how to build terrarium, and fairy ones in pocket watches. That's all very, very lovely. We have again how to make a fairy terrarium. Animal friends and foe is the next one, and again I really apologise for my pronunciation of the Russian artist Katrina, but this is another one of those beautiful photographs that were doing the rounds on the enchanted scene at one stage. So it talks about what each animal within our realm has in association with the fairy realm. We have fashion and beauty. Never really thought about the fashion of the fae, but definitely one there. Wonder whether it changes. It's got to do. Haven't seen any real pictures of fairies in like trainers and tracksuits though, so one to think about. So we've got fairy queens, styling icons of the fairy realm. And we have the big hitters, Morgan Le Fay, Titania, and their kind of fashion sense, Galadriel. We have, oh, okay, here we go, modern fairy couture. And not a tracksuit inside. So we have beautiful flower-made dresses, and ones made out of flowers. I did pick up a book many years ago that was about fairy fashion, but it was a book that was like an artist book where they put together fairy outfits, but they'd made specifically out of bits of leaves and bark and petals, etc. So that very much looks like the work that was going off in that book. I'll dig that one out maybe for a review. So moving on, we have fairy shoes. There is a bit on how to make a fairy crown for yourself, which is very nice. Lots of blousy flowers in that. We have absolutely exquisite sort of dresses that have obviously been made to fit the taller of us fairies, so those who are over, you know, a few inches high, that we could maybe get into those. We've got one here about how to make fairy dust. So let me just read you this. No true fairy lover shall be without a bottle of fairy dust. Here's one way to make the magical sparkly stuff. So the materials you're going to need is a small glass bottle with a cork, coloured glitter, biodegradable I'm adding in there, one wish written on a scrap of parchment paper, collection of trinkets, vintage keys, dried flowers or herbs are optional, a piece of thin crystal, ribbon and label, which is also optional. So fill your bottle halfway to the halfway point with the glitter, add the herbs and flowers and sentimental trinkets if desired. Write your wish on the bit of the parchment, roll it up and scroll it into the bottle. Cork the bottle with a cap, choose your crystal to make it extra special, and then tie the ribbon around the neck. Repeat the wish to yourself and believe. I would also take that out and put it somewhere really special if it was me. Fairy fragrances. So smell is the most powerful sense we have, particularly in terms of its ability to jog memory and to preserve memory. No song or sight can match the potency of perfume of a long lost love or the aroma of a grandmother's recipe for scones. True. So we talk about bathing fairy style. And fairy wings is the next one. So there's loads jammed in this, absolutely loads, and it does have that really nice whimsical but yet not too sickly a feel to it, which is good to see. Stunning photos, all very flowing. Everything has this slightly vintagey edge to it and kind of flows really nicely. So we've got a lot of mixed in classic fairy artwork. We have I've just seen an Arthur Rackham that's in there, and some of the other big Victorian artists, not just the illustrators, in there, but mixed in with these modern photographs as well, which have this vintagey edge to it, which is great. So how to know if you're a fairy girl? Might take that test later, see if I am a fairy girl. So arts and cultures next, and of course we're starting with A Midsummer's Night Dream, which is one of the most famous of the world of the arts. It's obviously the Shakespeare play, so we're covering that. We're also covering that in artwork as well as talking about it. We have a bit about how to avoid being taken by the fairies. That's really nice. We've got a section on changelings and then Victorian fairy paintings. So covering some of the absolute classics there. I'm flicking through that. Oh, we've got one particularly on Arthur Rackham. Definitely up there in my probably top 5 all-time artist illustrators, let alone on the fairy side of things. Absolutely love his work. There's something really kind of gnarly as well as beautiful about the work that he does. Cottingley Fairies hoax, so it talks about that. Hoax it may have been, but I'm still a believer. That's what I say. Then we've got other artists. We've got Brian Froud. Oh, we've got Fairy Tale World of Mr. Finch. Now this is a book. I have the Fairy Tale World of Mr. Finch in one of his books, which is another one of my beautiful books that I think I've had off the shelf and looked at twice because it's so beautiful. And I was going to do a book review. I was a bit unsure whether it was going to fit into this, but I think I am going to do that book review because that's just triggered it off. So we have Where the Veil is Thin, Fairy Portals and Pathways, Midsummer's Night Dream Garden Party, How to Construct an Arbour, Edible Flowers, so we've got Candied Violets, how to make those, Flower Lollipops, which they look extraordinary. So recipes for flower lollipops and lavender shortbread. I do cook quite a lot of lavender shortbread. I absolutely love it. I go a bit mad though, put a bit too much lavender in sometimes. Honey ricotta tart, absolutely beautiful photos again. So fairy drink, obviously we're with relation to gotta be absinthe here. Yep, the green fairy, the wicked absinthe fairy. Drunk absinthe, I think, once, not properly, not traditionally, but yeah, bit of a headache. Don't know where that fits into the fairy world. So having a fairy tea party, and it has fairy party tips and some lovely sort of Instagrammable type photos on there. Fairy houses, and that's for people seeking fairies. Now, how to see fairies, and it's got a chant, and then we're into the acknowledgement resources, really good resources there, telling you about festivals that are taking place. It's got select bibliography, which is really quite good. Who have we got on here? Anything that stands out? Encyclopedia of Fairies, which I did the review on not so long ago, which is good. We've got about the contributors, so there's quite a few. Let's put 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So 15 people contributed to this, which is great. We've got a reference to interviews that you can have a look up online, and also websites. So beautiful, beautiful book. One to have in your bookshelf. Is it in depth? I don't think a book of this size, with covering this much diversity about the Fae realm, is going to give you any kind of breadth of the subject. As a beautiful book, as a starting book, and it's definitely one that I would give a child without feeling like I was patronising a child as well. It definitely has that feeling of you could give it to a kid and they would appreciate it from a very young age right the way up into adulthood. And you could sit down, you could scan through it and do some of the projects, which would be quite fun. Great starting point. But I think the winner for me is, like I say, it's beautiful and it feels whimsical and it feels very fairy-esque without being overly sugary, which I'm quite pleased at. I'm quite pleased at that. So hope you liked my review of that book. I will be doing some more in the future. Please hit subscribe. I'm doing interviews with some fantastic guests over the next few weeks. I've got quite a few set up this week that will be coming up over the next few weeks. So yeah, please hit subscribe. I'm Kate Hairgill Ray, and thank you very much for joining me at Hair in the Hawthorn book review.